Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.52. We're playing as Britain. Long may the British Empire live. Not sure if live is quite the appropriate thing for an empire, but yep. As I think I've said before, and since it's just a quiet time, I think as an empire, and you very well might disagree, whoever you may be out there, but it was probably the best empire ever in the history of mankind. For many reasons. I don't know if you consider the United States an empire, seeing as it is, and I want to reinforce, 50 countries, as in states, not nations. There's a difference. Germany is a nation. It is a definable cultural group of people. Austria is a state, because it is definitely a sovereign government, but its people are basically Germans. Now, I know you could define everything down to Bavarians and Rhinelanders and Prussians and whatever, and I guess if you want to define that those aren't all the greater nation of Germany, okay, but for my definition, they were all Germans. They all speak, we talked about it, maybe different versions of German, but it was all German. Now someday, the modern sense, Austria may go through enough of an experience, cultural difference from the rest of Germany to move away from the German nation, but really it is a state. Germany is both a nation and a state. Obviously, a nation doesn't, as in this example, doesn't have to include everyone of that cultural group, but it needs to be predominantly of one culture in that sense, and a great bulk of the people of that ethnic group. You might say that there are French in Quebec, or French in Louisiana from their colonial days. I don't know if the people there would consider themselves culturally the same as French, but so you can have French living outside of France, but this is the French nation. So they're not 50 nations, 50 countries. Is that an empire? Well, when 13 of them wanted to be independent, the others said no, and there was a big civil war over that. So it's enforced by military force and no longer by common consent of the states. Yes, slavery was evil. I'm in no way defending it, but it was the legitimate governments of these states wanted their independence, maybe for bad reasons, but wanted their independence, and the central state said no. If you define that as an empire, then the US is the best empire ever in the history of mankind. And to have colonial possessions do not necessarily make you an empire. It's more than just that. So when we had as a colonial possession the Philippines, I don't really consider that the American empire. I sort of maybe vaguely use those terms just because they're sometimes the best, most fitting term in common usage. But really the British Empire was something meant to be permanent, may be the wrong term, because nothing is permanent, but it was not meant to have an end date. The situation, say this, and you got to realize all this was sort of Palestine. This region over here was often called Trans-Jordan because it was the other side of Jordan, but it was all sort of the Palestinian mandate, because it was taken away from the Ottoman Empire, and under the League of Nations. So it was sort of administered in the name of the local people, with the theoretical concept of eventually going independent. And obviously Egypt had a quasi-independent government internally, and it jointly, along with Britain, ruled the Sudan, because that was Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. It was a joint effort of the Egyptian government and the British government to rule in Sudan, where places like Rhodesia was sort of meant to be British for the foreseeable future, shall we say. And as we said in I think it was the last episode or one of the previous ones, India was a hodgepodge of independent states, semi-independent states, and all kinds of, excuse me, a little bit of hiccups. All kinds of different statuses within that. So, but it was the empire, and it was probably the best empire Britain, the British Empire, has ever had in the history of mankind. Now, that doesn't mean I don't recognize why people under that empire, seeing as I'm American, might not want to continue to be part of it, and that is not, I'm not saying that isn't a legitimate thing to want to seek your independence from the British Empire, but as empires go, they were the best. Having Stanley Baldwin resigns, having successfully negotiated the abdication crisis, the Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin left, or felt it was time to retire. 3 times Prime Minister during the age of mass democracy in Britain, he was the commanding figure of politics in the 20s and 30s. By 37, he was approaching 70, and it was time for a Okay, so Neville Chamberlain becomes head of government. Sir John Simon will become armaments minister, because that's the situation that Chamberlain had, which is more, in this sense, more the Minister of Economics. But whatever. Closest thing in Viscount Templewood becomes Minister of Security, and Stanley Baldwin will be removed. Okay, so let's take a quick look. Minister of Arms, crude oil. Okay, Chamberlain, threat impact, minus 10%. Naive optimist. Yes, I would say as a general, excuse me, as a general description, Chamberlain was a naive optimist. I would say that that is maybe a description of Obama, and it, to me, would be one of the worst forms of head of government you can have. Be naive and be an optimist, like, hey, don't worry about it, things will get better. It's fine to say, tell the people things will get better, but you got to have a plan, and you got to presume that other people aren't trying to make things go bad. Okay, and resource industrialist John Simon. So we could put Chamberlain back as a dual position. That might be good. Ruling party support. Now resources would be down though. Crude oil up, supplies, resources up. And yes, somebody who can be a a good economics minister, because that's what in essence this is. And I think maybe Chamberlain, I don't know much about him as a, I mean, I like the concept of a laissez-faire capitalist, so that's good. And if that describes him as an economic minister, that's maybe the best post for him. No, we're not going to, because we can't remove him, but we can double that up. Okay, a minister of security here. Man of the people. Ruling party support, that's good. So we're going to keep him there. Let's give it a few days here. Let's see how this... That's what I was afraid of right there. 57. So what we're going to do, because I don't need more resources as a strong point. So we're going to have Chamberlain do double duty. Let's at least temporarily bring that up. Keep that from going. Now that's just down, but I'll let this go for just a little bit. Hopefully get this down quicker. At some point I'm going to need to go in and look at all of these in much more detail. I'm still working with the information that Pavellini gave me for some unique Italian ministers like we have for German ones. Okay, range finding equipment advanced, that's the artillery. So we're going to stop that, and I think that, yeah, puts us back to nothing in the red, so we'll do that. And we have a decision we can make. Okay. Ordering the battleship HMS Hansen. Sure. I believe Anson was a rather good admiral. And like the rest, it's just there. Don't know when we're going to get to all the ICs to build these things, but okay. I really do like the shipyard feature of Hearts of Iron 4, as well as the military factories and the civil factories. I really like those, because I could, in this kind of situation, have, if they had supplies in Hearts of Iron 4, I could be having the civil factories crank out the supplies, as well as build additional factories or other infrastructure, and just have the military and the naval factories producing their own. But since we don't have those functions, okay, we would give them metal for money, sure. Got plenty of metal. Primarily steel, but yes, metal. Well, they've been in danger of losing Madrid for some time, but I think if they can hold out to 39 and hold Madrid and hold enough of these things, I think sort of an automatic nationalist lose. Where if it's just sort of a rump state often over here, the Republicans automatically lose. So they don't have to actually defeat. Okay, that's almost gone, so we can get done with that. Which will put 7 more ICs. Or 10 more ICs. Okay, CAG moment focus. Okay. Obviously we've pushed as far as we generally speaking can. Air launch torpedoes. How are we doing for daylight? Oh, we could do that right now. Was the British at Toronto that was able to attack the British, or attack the Italian fleet at port with their air-launched torpedoes that showed the Japanese how to do it at Pearl Harbor. So without the British doing that, the Japanese, particularly, part of it was that I think Toronto, not absolutely sure, but I think Toronto was a fairly shallow harbor. I know the Americans were fairly well convinced that their fleet was safe because for the most part Pearl Harbor was very shallow, and if you well, I mean, it wasn't completely, I mean, it wasn't absolutely safe because obviously you could drop bombs on them, but they knew that Pearl Harbor was too shallow to be able to come in and do a torpedo attack. And it's really, I mean, there were some losses of ships to bombs, but it was mostly the torpedoes that took out the battleships at Pearl Harbor. And it was just too shallow for air-launched torpedoes to be able to be done in Pearl Harbor, because when you drop them from the air, they go pretty deep before they come back up and go in on target. The Japanese figured out a way to make their torpedoes land very shallow simply by putting in wood extensions on the sort of guidance fins at the back so they wouldn't go deep. And that's what the Japanese figured out how to do based on the Toronto attack. British air-launched torpedoes. Submarine crew training. Okay, well, we're at 39, so we're going to stop that. Let's see, we'll do destroyer crew training. That'll help a lot of our light forces with anti-submarine ambitions. Okay, now we are... Okay, now let's just make that slightly positive. So that's 10 more ICs. Okay, now. Oh, in the wrong spot. There we go, we'll get a couple of the battleships in production once these things happen. Move through. Then we'll get some more fighters in production. Bring up the practicals on that. And intelligence. Okay, well, we'll look at our numbers. How are we doing in Japan? 1. US 6. I haven't stolen anything. So I guess we could say that the British used their intelligence to improve, to steal the... I don't know that they got exactly what details they got from the raid, but they figured out to some degree how the British did their attack. Toronto. Okay, stop that. Let's see. Give them money for fuel. No. Okay, we could reorganize the War Ministry. Well, currently we are still very positive, so we're going to do a not now, because Some of these do have, like, you have a 50-50 chance of a national revolt risk, but we don't have a revolt risk, so lowering that won't help. Money, that could help, but we've got pretty good money. Territorial pride, don't know if that's going to help as much. And the 50-50 chance to reorganize the ministry, which we're not really recruiting too many units, so we're going to go not. Tibet, we give them money for fuel. Okay, I want better relations with Tibet. I want better relations with South Africa, and I don't care about. And that's already now blue red. No, it's up to there. Okay. And armor unit training. The national colors, there we go. As you can see, this is not nearly as exciting as playing Germany with Third Reich events. Yes, shameless plug, and I know most all of you already know. But it really does, I mean, I can do this quite happily. Yeah. I do want the time to be, and then just pause for these things a bit more. Light bomber prototype. Okay. That's fine. Oh, we can do 4. We want to do that. And 400 transport plane, that's great. We may need to build some of those someday. But we're stopping that. And we'll do escort roll. Twin engine fighter prototype. Okay, good. We're also going to stop that at the moment. We want to make sure our Navy is the best, so the commander decision making forces will be improved. Alright. And any tank and any aircraft ammo has improved. Okay, 1,000 bomb. 1,000-pound bomb. Open sees it, but that's fairly far in the future. There we go. Keep our fighter training up. And yes, I may be overestimating the effectiveness of the AI, but rather do that than presume I'm just going to be able to defeat them. Fuselage aerodynamics. Because I really, really wish difficulty levels for any of these games would be something akin to AI smartness, not how many ICs or other sort of bonuses or mouths that we could put on a nation. Because I guess, trust me, and a few of you wanted me to play this on a harder level. They like watching some of the people like, oh my god, who played it on the GoFaz level and won, is simply a challenge of winning the game. What I want to play is something as close to historically accurate as possible of the idea of levels of difficulty in the situation like that. And so that's what I want out of the game. And then difficulty levels would be, simply how smart the AI was. Is it dumb? Yes, this is stupid. This is dumber than dumb. Rocks at least know to roll downhill. I don't know if the AI has that figured out yet. But, to have different levels of the AI is what I would find, and just how smart it was. That's how I would want to, am I playing up against Patton, or am I playing up against Mark Clark, or somebody as the opposing general? That's what I would want to do. Okay. On September 2nd of 1937, a unnamed typhoon hit our city of Hong Kong. It affected Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. 11,000 people died in Hong Kong and harmed our infrastructure. It was a truly tragic event. I'm sure 11,000 people on a relatively small island. Okay, we lose naval base level and a infrastructure level. At the time, right now, I'm not going to rebuild it because I don't need it. Okay, light armor designs have advanced far enough now that it allows us to do medium armor. And torpedo tubes have advanced. So that opens up long-range subs. And this. Now what I did do, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, so I'll mention it now. I'm sorry, I forgot who posted up a sort of generic majors, major nations, submarine tech improvements, so that somewhat based to the year, somewhat, and it was just, and so I copied and pasted them into all the majors, plus Australia and Canada. So everybody got the same, every nation, Japan, US, Germany, France, all got this same starting text, which is not historically accurate. The French were particularly, in this early period, particularly good at building really big submarines. They did some big ones, including ones that had massive naval guns on them, that they really were looking at using them as sort of a a submersible fleet action type ships that they would move along. Obviously, because in those days you had to run on batteries when you're submerged, so you can't do it that fast, that long. So you presumably move along the surface of the ocean with your submarines, with your diesel electric submarines, and then when the enemy fleet, as a fleet of the enemy fleet would come near, you would all sort of dive in a coordinated manner, but keep a fair amount of distance from the enemy. And then I'm not sure how you communicated. You would, or maybe you would sort of porpoise, and different ones would surface, fire a couple of shots from their I don't know, 8 or 10 inch or whatever they were, main guns, huge main guns, and in a not a semi-traversing turret, and then dive back down, presumably before you could be hit, because you put even a small hole in any submarine, it doesn't go. You can dive again, but you don't come back up. So it's unlike a surface action ship that you can have holes going in it and keep fighting. So let's focus on our standard submarines. I don't know how much of long-range submarines we're gonna need. So each nation, like Japan, also had some fairly long-range submarines because they were dealing with the Pacific, which is a very big ocean. Not that they didn't have short-range stuff too, they certainly did, but so we're gonna let these guys go. Yes, Army Unit Command and Control. Okay, which allows us to do the combined arms, yes. So some of that would and should be tailored to each nation a little better, or historically correct, but oh well. So I didn't, but I made sure I wasn't, if you will, cheating. Okay. No. All right. No. That's not the like I was saying before, I'm not looking for the hardest, biggest challenge, but I'm also not looking to make this easy on myself either. I want as close to historic as we can get. Yeah, I guess we can start with something. How are we doing with production? Okay, well, we're into doing these, which is good. Stormtrooper tactics, and are we still? Yep, still got a little bit more. Might as well. These will just get these out, help our units a little better. Medium velocity guns, yes. Now we'll be able to actually shoot somebody effectively. Still not sure whether to do that since we're doing this, but as you can see, by running it so fast, they're just popping up and pausing, so we'll slow this down a little bit. Full unit command and control. Come on, come on. Well, yeah, we'll go over. Since most all divisions will have our reconnaissance units attached. Sort of the universal thing. They might not all have an anti-aircraft unit or something like that attached to every division, but I'm going to try to have every proper division. Well, let's see how we're doing out here. We still have one left. You know, a garrison division or something out here that doesn't, but most everyone will have a reconnaissance unit of some sort attached. How are we doing in Spain? Well, Republicans are holding on. Actually making a little headway up here. Wing aerodynamics. Oh, we could do that, I guess. So yeah, I'm saying, you know, I'm saying we could do it, I guess, because I was thinking I don't know how many mountain units I'm going to be making, so... Or with Germany, I know I'm going to make a bunch. But I just don't know with Britain. And direct fire unit, long tab, there we go. And direct fire. Okay, which now should allow us increase its combined arms effectiveness. Somebody stole some of our blueprints, uh-oh. Thought we had, yeah, we are. We've got 10 there, don't we? Yeah. Active domestic spies. And counter-espionage. Not the highest of these three, but not absolute, but okay, well. Okay, all these again. And I think they push some or all of them too far forward. Well, that can still continue. about our small ships. Okay, I think that, yes, well, because we've got our practicals increased, let's see, where could we maybe... Yeah, out here, it's farther away from German, possible German bombing. Then I'm not going to go crazy like I normally do with Germany on ice seas, but I do want to continue building up some as we continue forward here. Okay, carrier damage control systems has advanced. And grayed out, so, okay, fine. Now, Europe in arms. B.H. Littleheart. One of the great military thinkers, along with J.F.C. Fuller. Were basically interwar military thinkers. Definitely, in long-term history, had a great impact on military philosophy. I've read a few of his books. You don't normally see this in... This is a Hearts of Iron event. I mean, not Third Reich events event. You normally don't see this because this is the British one. I left in, because I did this one, I left in the two books, Infantry Attacks by Rommel and Achtung Panzer by Guderian, the events in the books for Germany, so they get those bonuses. And I also let in, what is it? Towards a Professional Army, I believe the English title of de Gaulle's book in for France. So again, I'm not cheating here. Okay, and I was a little torn between Fuller and Littleheart, whose book to put in. Of course, you can eventually put in both, but and we'll do so by the time I get around to doing stuff for Britain. Basically, and unfortunately you don't see, because of the new thing, so you can be somewhat blind. He was promoting the type of blitzkrieg warfare. Maybe not as well thought out, and I really don't know who was better thought out, but between him and Guderian. But they were both working along the same forward path. Now, I sort of like this tech gain thing, is so you have to sort of make the choice based upon reading the event, which gives you, as it says here, because I know I put this in, but obviously I copied this from somewhere else. German General Guderian had read Fuller, Little Hart, and other tank warfare theorists. And that's why one thing I don't know how good Little Hart would have ever been as a proper military high-level general. I believe he was an officer in the First World War. Does it say here? Or not? I know Fuller was, but maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But you have a choice. You can go with a bunch of bonuses to naval and air power. And I believe that that's one either for sure or has the higher likelihood. I think it's like an 80%, I think, if I remember correctly. I just don't really remember. Of what the AI will pick, because that sort of represents what Britain did do. Not that they totally ignored tank warfare, but they weren't as bad. They weren't nearly as bad as ignoring it as France was in a combined arms concentration of firepower sense. Obviously, France had the most tanks, so they hadn't totally ignored tanks, but they saw them as a support arm to the infantry and spread all out. This gives the Britain ability to focus either on naval and air power, which to defend an island is probably the smarter thing to do, because if you control the air and the seas, you're not going to lose the island. Or you can go with this, which will gain a bunch of stuff. Now, all of these things are designed to give a boost to all those techs, whatever they may be, but not such a boost that it bumps you to the next level. Because not everyone who is watching this has played TRE, presumably, because I know a few of you aren't even playing Hearts of Iron 3, you're Hearts of Iron 2 players, but I've enjoyed my series and I'm glad to have you along. These are all designed to, if you're not already researching somewhere in here, or for your various air, or whether they're, I forget what they are right offhand, or whether they're operational techs. I think there may be more operational techs than doing the prototype type things. None of them are designed to give you the next level up. Now, if you've already worked your way down, or the AI has, you're already in here, yes, it'll push you over the edge. So they're all designed to give you a boost, and that's why there's a lot of them. You don't get one of these and all of these techs you go up one level. No, they're just maybe 10 days, maybe 60 days. It just how I felt at the time, looking at the text, and how I analyzed it at the time. And I don't remember. It's been more than a year since I made this event, so I don't remember the details. But as I was looking at the stuff and looking over things, which way to go, so it's designed. This is designed to give a boost to what I think was a little bit more historically the path that Britain did take. And France, you have the chance of going down sort of de Gaulle's mobile army techs, or a bunch of techs that help you build defensive works. On tab again. And again, boy, I'm not hitting the right ones at all, am I? Into here, like defensive position designs, some of these other, as well as some infantry bonuses, Francis, and it's even more heavily weighted to not go de Gaulle's path for the AI, because I don't know exactly their, you can look at their EULA if you know how to read this stuff. I barely comprehend it a little bit, but can't really write it. The AI, what it's programmed France to do, but a combination of what they did historically, and I wasn't going to give them So if it's not told to, you can tell the research AI what to focus on for each nation. So I figured whoever was dealing with the French probably weren't focusing on mechanized warfare. So I reinforced them getting better defensive doctrines for their infantry and their fortification defenses. So that's what the AI will pick. You, if you're playing as France, will have the opportunity to go either path however you want. And again, here we can go either path. I'm going to go with Little Heart here. We're going to do this because, well, I feel like it. So I'm going to quickly look here. Okay, I don't think we pushed any over the edge. So that's just how it works. If you're playing TRE, I design them so that, well, all this stuff isn't a zero-sum game. There aren't just, say, 100 officers in a building somewhere. Oh, well, what manuals are we going to write? Or what are we going to go out in the field today and research for improving artillery or something like that? Individuals will have brilliant ideas. It isn't just how much effort you put into it. So this is sort of what I'm looking at with like Rommel's book and Guderian's book, is that these individuals, through their books, but also through their leadership within the Army, will spur on other officers to improve certain things. So it sort of represents the dynamic elements of reality. I mean, obviously it's not 100% dynamic, and you could argue that, but it sort of represents the idea that it isn't just, oh, X amount of leadership, you go through the steps, you come out the same. You come out at the other end with a certain level. It's sort of the idea that things in history happened that push in directions in different ways and spur different stuff forward. So that's sort of what I'm looking at to simulate with my mods, particularly TRE here, but with any of them in the future, is so that they're a bit dynamic in that way, or they represent the human/historical factor, so that's why certain nations will get certain bonuses because of things, whether it's some bonuses that you get. Now obviously they started this way back in one of the Hearts of Iron 3 versions. I don't know which one. Don't remember that, sending Von Thoma and crew to Spain, and when they come back you get some bonuses to some of the tank techs. Some have already been put into the game, but it's things like that you can push things along a little bit more than the zero-sum game. But I also do like the idea that you as a player, you get to make decisions. Like when I made the decision, oh, well, I'm going to focus right now on researching standard submarines. Now maybe I'm going to run out at some point of either techs, like I'm pushing a little bit with the aircraft techs, into 38 when we're still into 37. But if I run out of other things that I want to push ahead to, and I go, okay, well then yes, this is an older 1935 long-range sub, so yeah, we'll research that just because we have sort of the free slot, if you will. But if I'm never really offered that, meaning if I have a full set of stuff to research otherwise to keep moving ahead here, I don't know that I would miss for Britain not having long-range submarines, because we're not playing Germany, we're not playing Japan, we're not even playing the US. So will I need to base subs out of Australia and try to raid waters in near Japan? Maybe, but since I'm not, and that would be useful, but maybe it'd be just enough to, you know, as the island hopping campaign goes, find some islands to sink stuff in, you know, in a region out here. That would be enough. And we'll see how much Germany will try to trade, either sending supplies and bringing back resources from Norway, or will the AI be stupid enough to try to, I don't know, trade with the US until the war starts with the US, or something else that I can sink a bunch of transports, you know, convoys with my subs. You know, will there be? And obviously, if we hold the Mediterranean, you know, closed, Italy won't be able to trade with anything. But maybe I don't think we'll need long-range submarines to try to interdict convoys of supplies to Libya. So, you know, I'm looking at that. So even short-range submarines, and you saw what I did sort of with the reverse, the short-range submarines for Germany in the Mediterranean last series. So I'm avoiding doing that. You know, doing the long-range submarines. So even if historically they did, and even if historically, you know, I read a book on British research and somebody's really brilliant and he came up with doing a long-range submarine stuff, give you a tech bonus. But if you decide not to research them, you decide not to research them. So you as a player do have that choices to make as well. You're not dictated to by history. So I sort of like that balance. I'm just sort of giving you my design philosophy for how I work and make judgments on these mods and what to do. Okay, well, infiltration tactics have advanced. Well, I will say the British did have some levels of infiltration type tactics. They weren't at least as early as a lot of the Stormtrooper and World War I stuff. But I would call some of the infiltration tactics being like the SAS, primarily using vehicle, but they also did some other infiltration tactics. So they were using that in submarine holes have advanced. Okay, so we'll swap that over to batteries. I guess that's a good one to do. And I think we're going to end the episode here. Thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Thanks for liking the videos as well. Please post your comments. And hey, if I'm getting some of the history wrong, because quite honestly, I'm going off base what I'm seeing on the screen and what I'm remembering. So if I'm misremembering stuff, please correct it in the comments. I don't feel put out at all if you do that, especially if you're nice about it. And I hope as people go on and watch this series over time, they will go down and read the comments section. So to everyone who's obviously, many of you are watching it first time, and there isn't much comment section down when they're first put up there. But if you're coming through later and there's a bunch of comments, you ought to go down and read them, because there's been very, more so far with the previous series, some very good and intelligent discussions gone on that you can obviously join. We don't mind if you comment a year or two later if this series is still being watched. But you might read and find some very interesting things out if you want after watching the episode. So please comment if you like to, but also read them as well. Well, see you next time. Thanks for watching.